But, our prediction was more legislation, not necessarily being passed. So I say we did it.
David will find a way to say he was right.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
This is Abigail from Arthritis and Rheumatology in Atlanta, Georgia, and you are listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast.
Thank you for that intro. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Cardin. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning, David.
How you be?
I'm doing pretty good. Trying to stay away from all the people that do have colds and whatnot is challenging this time of year when you want to go to all the events.
Mm-hmm.
In a couple of weeks, I looked at my calendar and I was like, why did I think all of those things would be fun to do in the same week? It's like every night I got something going on and I don't know which one to cut, but I'll probably be sick at the end of that.
Yeah. Yeah, all the running around that happens in December is pretty exhausting.
Yeah. And fun at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting last night and ended up winning a door prize.
Uh-oh. What'd you win?
They were drawing all these door prizes, right? And of the, I think they had like maybe 6 door prizes. And of these 6 door prizes, a Chamber of Commerce employee won 2 of them.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, I literally said out loud, this thing's rigged. And as soon as I said that, they pulled my name next. And I was like, well, maybe it's not. So, changed my mind real quick. But I won 2 tickets to a gala.
You're a gala kind of guy.
Yeah. So, so I come home and I tell my wife, I'm like, you got to buy a dress now.
A gala one.
Yeah. And she's like, I don't even know what to wear to a gala. So she's like Googling, what do you wear to a gala?
I love Lori. She's so fun.
It's funny. So she shows me this dress last night and it looked like something that Elvira, Queen of the Night, would wear.
You're so mean to her.
I said, yes, exactly what you should get. Because, it literally was a black dress with the things up under the arms, like, who's it?
Wing things?
Morticia. It looks like the Morticia dress.
Oh, jeez.
From the Addams Family.
Yeah, but Lori could carry, she could pull that off. Be cool with it.
She could pull any of it off, but I just thought it was funny. And of course, she did it to kind of get my reaction on it. Mm-hmm. It was hilarious. I said, well, the cool thing about it is you could get that and wear it for Halloween too.
Jeez.
So anyway, that'll be interesting. That'll be coming up. I think it's in March. So got a little bit of time to prepare.
All right. We'll recap in March how the gala goes.
I know, because
you two are such gala people.
Yeah. You're talking to 2 people who consider a Thanksgiving event going out with their rifles and shotguns and blowing up the pumpkins for Halloween. We are not gala people.
No, it'll be fun. I can't wait to hear.
It's like the time we went out to dinner with you guys and we were in this restaurant reading the menus and Lori just hands you the menu and goes, I don't know what any of this is. Just tell me what to order.
Yeah, she did. It was great.
Yeah.
I took care of her. I always will.
Yeah, always fun though, that's for sure.
Yes. All right, so hit us with your best shot, David. We got the boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
The spring boot camp, March. What's the dates, David?
23, 4, and 5? No, 4, 5, and 6. 24, 25, 26. I knew I'd get it wrong.
Yeah. March 24th, 25th, 26th in Tucker, Georgia. And there will be one in the fall. We are figuring out dates, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
One or the other. And we have no promises on the second half of the year because there is some date issues that we're trying to work out. So if you want to make sure you make it to a boot camp in 2020, I would recommend coming to the March one.
'Tis true.
Mm-hmm. And then, if you want to come in the fall, after you come to March, we give alumni a great deal.
'Tis also true.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. And then, oh man, I'm trying to work out my schedule with multiple speaking engagements right now, and it's getting complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somebody wanted me to speak in November, and by the time we were done, the date that we could work out was May. That's which was fun, and we're being interviewed on these podcasts, and I was just interviewed on an episode of CyberWire's Caveat.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, they were talking about HIPAA, and it's a privacy law podcast, so it was pretty interesting. And I sent them a note that said, by the way, blah, 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 and they said, hey, let's talk to you. And we're going to be interviewed for the Canadian version of HIPAA. We're setting up that date. You and I are. They have a similar thing, just uses different words. Hey, different words. All right. So, anything else we got?
No, I've got a conference that I'll be speaking at in end of April in Vegas.
Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah, I'll get some more information about that. That's a little bit away, but it's put on by the American Institute of Healthcare Compliance, and April 29th and 30th in Las Vegas.
Whoa.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out there and teaching people how to do some HIPAA right.
Yeah, we're talking about hymns. We may be at hymns. I think I'm going to go. I can't get David to decide. So that's a roll of the dice, folks. A couple of other things we need to shout out to our Patreon supporters. Do you remember them?
Yes, I do. So John Dubinsky, George Fenton, and Kenneth Sims.
And we have closed down Patreon because we sucked at it. So, at least we admit it and we know it. And we just set up a new donation tool on the website. If you want to support Help Me with HIPAA, we would appreciate it. Go to the website. Can't miss it. Green button because it's cash.
Yeah, but we still do the little gift thing. Like, certain levels we'll do certain things.
See, now you got to remember then. All right. We will try to thank people better than we have been. And we also don't want you to forget that January 28th is Data Privacy Day. So if you want to use that information for training, we'll have some links to that. And we talked about it in a previous podcast. We'll give you a link to that as well about how to use Data Privacy Day and the giveaways and training to use it in your training program for free.
Absolutely. But if you want to pay for it, let us know. Because people don't value what they don't pay for.
There you go. Oh, wait, that means they don't value us, David.
Well, it can happen. Maybe we should start charging people to participate in security awareness training in our organizations. Not only do you have to be here on Saturday, but we're going to have to charge you $50 to attend.
There you go.
I bet you'll pay attention then, won't you?
That's right.
If you pass the test at the end of the day, we'll refund you your $50.
At the end of the day.
Anyway.
All right, well, let's get down to it because we got to review how we did in our 2019 predictions, our recap. We got a lot to talk about.
All right, we'll do that right after a short break. The number of medical practices that think they're HIPAA compliant is pretty staggering. Effective privacy and security are an ongoing process, not a checklist. And that's why at Cardin, they don't just assess your situation and leave you with a report, but they work with you all along the way. Call Cardin today at 678-292-5001 or visit them on the web at cardinhq.com. Aren't your patients worth it?
Are you frustrated with your current IT provider? Are you sure you're getting the security and protection you need? Are you putting your patients and your practice at risk? If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, give Security First IT a call to learn more about how they can protect your patients, your practice, and your bottom line. Find them online at securityfirstit.com or call 980-288-5100.
All right, we're back. So let's talk about what we did in 2019. We talked about, as we normally do, what we predict to happen in the year, and then we circle back around at the end of the year to see how well we did.
Yeah, in 2018, we did this, and I still think it's more like educated guesses because I think everything's a roll of the dice when I wake up in the morning. So, but
Yeah, it's a swag.
yeah,
And you can look it up if you want to know what it is.
that's the way I work at it. But when I was going back and finding it, what were our predictions? And I honestly felt like I was, long ago in a galaxy far, far away. I was sitting there staring at it. But here's the 5 of them, because we went with 5. I don't know. We're going to work on our 2020 ones in an episode in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So number 1 was that more federal data privacy and security legislation would be coming.
Mm-hmm.
So there were more things suggested.
Yeah.
But,
I don't see there being, and I don't keep up with politics. Let me throw that out there first. But there doesn't seem to be anything happening with anything up there in Washington. So I don't think that anything will pass anytime soon, but at least they're talking about it.
Well, it is at least one of the few things that it has bipartisan support, which is rare today. But the disagreement is how it's implemented when you've got all these state laws.
Mm-hmm.
And so the discussion is, what if the federal law isn't as strict as the state law? Then does the federal law override it? Because as we know with HIPAA says, whatever gives the patient more rights, that's what applies.
Right.
And that's really the sticking point and the hardest part. I could make the argument either way, pick a side, I'll pick the other.
Yeah. Well, typically with any law, it's the one that's the most strict that takes precedence.
Right. But that's not what they want to do here.
Of course not.
No, what they want to do is say all the state laws kind of go away, is what some of them want to do. The others want to make a federal law that, as long as any section of the federal law is more stringent, you follow it. Same thing that we do with HIPAA.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the big debate. And, the state laws, they just keep coming, which we'll get to in a minute. So, yeah, we were hoping it would get done in 2019 because we know it ain't happening in 2020.
No.
So I guess 2021?
Yeah, maybe.
So we do still hope for it because most people do not understand how badly it is needed from a contractual standpoint, and all the things that every time you say, I agree to a privacy policy in order to use something, every time you click that, no one's reading them. And you have no idea what you're giving away because you haven't read those. And without a federal law that limits what those things can do, there's nothing that anybody can do about it. So, but there's number 1, still desperately needed. We still hope for it. But at this point, we've given up on thinking it'll actually happen anytime soon.
This is true. I definitely gave up on it. But, our prediction was more legislation, not necessarily being passed. So I say we did it.
David will find a way to say he was right.
We nailed it.
There you go. All right. Well, what about number 2, though? How'd we do?
Number 2. So that was more civil suits relating to data privacy and security from patients, government, and class actions.
Oh, yeah. We nailed that one.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. I mean, wow. There is so much happening in that arena, and it's patients holding those responsible for their privacies. They're trying to hold their feet to the fire. In many cases, it's truly about protecting privacy and not, hey, let me join this and see if I can get some money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not to say that's not out there, but, that there's There's people that sell things and they have a crappy BAA, but they say, hey, let me do this so I can get some money.
I know you didn't just open that door.
Y'all, he's still ranting after last week, but go ahead. He ain't done yet, but, we can't talk about it. But there are some big changes that are going on. For example, if you are in Montana, you can now sue people under the state law for failing to protect privacy and security. So HIPAA doesn't have the right to sue, but the state law in Montana does. And wait till the other states see how that works out.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's what gets me is you have this huge disconnect between the patients who are saying, I expect you to protect my data, and if you don't, I'm going to hold you accountable. But then when you ask the people who have the data, especially in the smaller organizations, you hear, well, I don't have anything anybody would want. And it's like, you don't understand. We're not asking you to protect your data. We're asking you to protect your patient's data.
That's right. It's not about compliance.
It's about patient care.
Jeez.
I know.
Goober. All right. So, what's happening in these lawsuits, though, is they're coming in, they're asking some questions. And, if you're doing check the box compliance, that's starting to not be considered protecting patient privacy, which is what we've said.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing HIPAA made easy, that's going to catch up with you. But I'm not referencing any particular product. I'm sorry, that's all with lowercase. But if you're trying to do it the easy way, just to meet some sort of regulation and not actually worry about protecting your patient's data, that's starting to catch up with them in a lot of ways. You need to have, if you can't show that the culture in the company really does, expect you to protect this information, and that every meeting somebody's going to ask about it or tell, hey, did you see this or something? It should be part of your day-to-day life.
And if you can't draft a business associate agreement properly, I have very little faith that you actually have a compliance program that's any good. And if you can't read and understand a business associate agreement and that it's properly drafted, you probably have the same problem. Just saying.
I don't care what law degrees you have.
I'm just saying.
I know.
Look, I have a Juris Doctorate as well. I'm just
oh, jeez.
Just not going to say what it's in.
Now,
but I got street cred.
All right. There's some other cases that are going on too, though, about information sharing, because we're rapidly approaching these deadlines, that interoperability deadlines, and there's increased interest in information sharing for a lot of reasons, but everybody's, it's about moving healthcare further and faster, and we can rebuild him. But one particular case is, there's multiple cases that involve Google, and they're wanting to get a hold of healthcare data because they're a data company. Come on. Mm-hmm. So there's one case that involves the University of Chicago Medical Center. Mm-hmm. And yes, we did have the CISO of University of Chicago. Eric was on here. He was talking about HICCUP, and obviously we're not going to put him in the position to talk about the case. So any of you that bring that up, no, we did not do that because that's just not fair to him. And we're not fair with each other, but we are with other people. But in this case, they had an agreement with Google. They did de-identification, which that's an element of HIPAA. You remove the 18 elements or any other identifying indicators, and you sign a data use agreement, and then you can use the data for research and those kind of things.
Yeah, just check your BAA.
Oh, jeez. So, at any rate, they announced this, that, hey, we're going to do this, and blah, blah, blah. Well, a bunch of patients got upset and said, I don't want my data going to Google, even if it is de-identified. And so they're suing Google and the University of Chicago Medical Center over whether or not this is a reasonable thing to do. Now, they've asked for it to be dismissed is where the case stands right now, because they've met all the legal requirements. They've de-identified the data, which is a requirement, and they've, and I don't know if they've gone the statistical route when you have a university. I suppose you could, but the bottom line is the law says if I de-identify it, make it where I can't re-identify it easily, I can work with somebody with a limited data set.
Mm-hmm.
The point that a lot of people have, though, is, Google has so much data. How much would it take for them to re-identify somebody, So that's that reasonable and appropriate standard, and so on and so forth. So we'll see how that case goes, but there's that.
Google could probably say, there's a Google search that happened in this zip code at this time of day. We know who did it. Mm-hmm. Because every morning when I get up, they know exactly when I get up and everything else.
I know. They're tracking locations and stuff. So if I look at the data service and I know it's at the University of Chicago, and I go pull all the people that were in, all the phones that showed up there that day, I could probably track them.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of other layers. There's tons of people with those phones that work there. There's tons of people with those phones that are visiting there. There's so there's complications. This one remains to be seen. I think it's an interesting debate. I'm not horribly freaked out about this one. My paranoia, I understand their concerns. Let me just say. But at the same time, I'm on the ledge about, can you truly de-identify something? That's the part that is so hard to quantify right now. And if you can de-identify it, then I think everything goes away. But the question is, when you're somebody like Google that's a data company, can you truly de-identify it?
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, you have an opinion on that?
I mean, I agree with you, because just what you said, they have so much analytics and AI and data and everything else that they can piece things together that an average company can't do.
Yeah. So, but again, the question is, what does the contract say, and will Google hold up its end of the contract? So then you get into a whole new list of questions. So this was complicated from that perspective, but we're going to talk about Google again in a minute.
All right.
One other case that we have going on that I thought was quite interesting and that everybody should make note of. This one is in Pennsylvania. So an employee violated HIPAA, kind of in a really bad way. And so they were immediately fired. How often do you hear that? 50 people get fired at a hospital when an actor comes in after being beat up. That happens.
Mm-hmm.
But this employee came back and said that they weren't bad enough. And they said that they didn't really know that they were going to get fired. They just thought it was a little bad. And it's it's a teaching hospital. So you got FERPA and HIPAA going along in there. And
so they were trying to teach everybody else what you don't do.
Yeah, right. So, but at any rate, in that case, the argument in court was, I didn't know I could get fired for this, that it wasn't a fireable offense kind of thing. Well, the court ruled that, basically the net is that if you have a clear-cut sanction policy that says X, Y, and Z, if you do these things, boom, you're out.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing. That you can defend that if you fire somebody for HIPAA violations.
Okay.
However, they made a point, basically if an employee handbook that merely provides a statement that violating HIPAA or FERPA will result in disciplinary action, but it's not you don't tell, you just say we could do anything up to and including fire you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have these kind of sanction policies.
Oh, yeah, because they won't have the ability to make a determination.
Well, they're checking the box, They're not nailing it down. And we did a whole episode on sanction policies.
Yep.
Because of that and encouraging people not to have the gray ones. Well, guess what? Here's why. Mm-hmm. Because if you have the gray ones, then you can't defend in court as well as if you have the specific ones. So go back and listen to that episode, and we'll put a link to it. How do you sanction? Because, there's that.
True.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different cases going on, though. So many, I couldn't even, begin to touch on them. There's a lot of cases with individual patients, not just class actions.
Mm-hmm.
Those are huge.
Cool. So sounds like we're 2 for 2 so far. All right.
Okay.
So that leads us into prediction number 3, which is states are becoming very active in prosecuting and adding new laws to give them more enforcement tools.
We just talked about Montana, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. So, bam, nailed that one.
But you've got Nevada, New York, or Nevada. I don't know which one's right. There's always an argument there. It's like Colorado. Anyway, there's tons of states. What?
Nevada.
Feliz Navidad.
Yeah.
Oh, there's David. All right. So, and of course, the big thing, and we've also talked about this, is that CCPA.
Mm-hmm.
And so CCPA is the California Consumer Protection Act, and we did also talk about it and how HIPAA kind of intertwines or does not intertwine with CCPA.
Mm-hmm.
So this one's clear.
What do you mean this one's clear?
Okay, number one, I'm not real sure.
Nailed it.
So and the big thing was we also talked about the huge settlement with Med Informatics Engineering, the 12-state settlement along with the OCR, which was like $1 million when it was all combined,
mm-hmm.
over the EHR company having a data breach.
Yes.
12 states. So state's attorney general's offices are state attorneys general. That's the proper way. They are getting more and more involved. And as the state laws continue to adapt, and we're about to go into another cycle of all those laws being introduced, again, until we have some federal law that kind of aligns all of them, they're all over the place, and you better be paying attention in your state. And I think that as the CCPA is rolled out in 2020, there's going to be a lot of indicators to, inform how we do it at the federal level. So I think in a lot of ways people are watching. And again, that's why 2021 we may see action because we'll have a year of CCPA.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we had a prospect not long ago that was in California. And I was like, I don't want to bid on this right yet. Let's see what the CCPA thing happens, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, there you go. Lay low, David. Lay low. That's an approach.
Yep. Stay out of California.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people figuring it out. If you're already in there, you're already figuring it out. But if you're looking at going into California, different ballgame.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways.
Yeah. Well, the fun thing is, anytime you're in multiple states, you start looking at, okay, what do I have to do per state? And either you're going to have to try to run your business in multiple different ways, or you're going to try to bring everything under one process and policy and procedure based on the most strictest state you're in.
Most strictest.
That's what I said, the most strictest state you're in. So California is what is like 72-hour breach notification?
Yeah, something like that.
I'm like, yeah, okay. That's rough.
But, if HIPAA applies to you, you got different rules. So go check out that episode. But surprisingly, at the rate that the laws are coming and even the ones in place are being changed,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times I just give up. Like, if something happens, I'll go look at those state laws because I'm doing all this other stuff. But again, I think it's going to be pretty interesting because we're going to see a lot of other laws that come into play. I think we're going to start seeing laws about cybersecurity coverage and what they can and cannot do. I mean, there's a lawsuit going on right now where, God, which one was it? It was one of the big name ones, and I'm drawing a blank on which one, but they filed their claim to get their money from their insurance coverage. And because the government said that they thought it was North Korea or China or whoever that did the hack, then the insurance company is saying, well, that's an act of war and we don't cover an act of war.
Yeah, that was, it was a company that owns like cracker companies and all this kind of stuff. It was a food company.
All right. Well, that's your story and you stick to it. We'll figure it out for another discussion. But I do think that we're going to see a lot of things continuing down this path because there's so much going on. But again, you're going to have the same problem that you have at a federal level. Cray.
So it was, so Zurich was the name of the insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
And the claim is from Mondelez.
Okay.
And,
there you go. Act
of
war.
Yep. It's for not paying for the NotPetya attack.
Oh, yeah.
Which is saying that it originated in Russia. Of course, the argument is that even though it may have came from the Russian state or military, there's not been anything official that says that. And also, it wasn't aimed at the United States. It was aimed at, who was it?
Ukraine?
Ukraine, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, it was Ukraine.
So, but, it's going to be interesting because I think that however this plays out, it will set some precedents. But there's $100 million claim up for grabs between Zurich and Mondelez. So,
yeah, it's going to become more and more questionable along the way. But we'll talk about that some more in our predictions because clearly that's going to keep coming up.
Yeah. Well, I think there's some other little nuances about that case that we're not so sure about. Like, I don't know that they had a specific standalone cybersecurity policy. I think it might have been a rider on something else, which was a problem. Anyway.
But, I know I've heard people say, well, I don't have to worry about HIPAA. I got insurance. They'll pay it. Yeah.
You can't even get your BAA right.
And then you have people fill out that insurance claim form that says they're doing a risk analysis and following HIPAA. You think that ain't going to catch up with you? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, number 4.
So this one's pretty much primarily yours. And you stuck a flag in the ground and said supply chain will be a priority in 2019.
Knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was crazy supply chain issues.
I know. It's the thing we talked about more than any one topic. We talked about a lot of topics, but when I went back to see, because I just go back to see what we ended up doing episodes on, so, 5 episodes that directly dealt with third parties.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's over a month of discussions, and it was huge.
Yeah. There are so many problems with supply chain just within the IT sector.
Mm-hmm.
It boggles my mind. And I see this happening every day. Either going into a prospect and talking to them about what they have, or I'm bidding on a healthcare provider. And then of course I'm having competing bids, and the competing bids are just ridiculous. There are things that I honestly stopped doing 5 years ago because it doesn't move the needle anymore.
Right.
But they're still out there selling that level of IT, and these providers are like, well, that's a lot cheaper than what you have, so I'm going with that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but this this doesn't even cover the check the box. This is below that. You can't buy it based on price. You have to buy it based on what it's going to protect you and your patients. And oh man, this is a bad problem.
Yeah, you need to go for the middle or higher, not the lowest when it comes to this stuff. Because anyway, that's generally the rule. When I'm vetting vendors, I find that to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when we look at all the different stuff, so we started episode 196. So this episode is 234. We do 4 a month. So there you go. All right. So 196, we start third-party breach stories. We had multiple cases where we did that. Then 203, which, right after that, we talk about 3 supply chain stories, problems with supply chains. 209, BA guidance on liabilities from OCR, which were directly related to people not being clear on, well, if I don't sign the contract.
Yeah, the contract ain't even right. So what difference does it make?
I know, right? I have a crappy contract. I don't sign the contract. 216, we talked about who is a BA because people are, trying to nail that down. And then 218, questions to ask IT, which is going back to what David said about asking them if they truly are part of this process or are they just periphery doing the check the box stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you're really in this sector in healthcare and HIPAA and all that. You are either part of the solution or part of the problem. You're not in the middle.
Right.
There's no middle ground here.
Yeah. And, there's people that are trying, I guess is about the only thing you could consider middle ground, is they don't have it all yet, but they're working constantly to improve.
Yeah.
Versus, I don't need to do it, or I've already got it covered, or I'm a certified cybersecurity specialist, so I don't need to know anything else. I've got this.
We outsource all that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
But I picked 2 stories. One we talked about a little bit, and one that's fairly new, and it has to do with Google, that really reiterates the impact of supply chain issues. So first is the American Medical Collection Agency one. This one's, I think, going to go hit us at the state level, the civil suit level, all of the other things that we talked about. And we've mentioned it in multiple episodes. We haven't done a specific one on it, but it's another one in that list. So there's probably 6 where we've talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
This one's flat out scary. Because, again, this is a company that on their website talked about how they were processing $1 billion of medical payments every year. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And they had been infiltrated for 8 months before, and credit card data was being sold on the darknet. And when the security researchers notified them, they said, "No, that ain't us." They didn't respond. They just so finally, security researchers contacted the FBI. The FBI said, "Hey, we coming in," and that's when they finally started paying attention.
Must be an FBI scam.
Right. But I think we're up at like 24, 25, 27, somewhere in the mid-20s million people that their data has been exposed in this single breach. So it's the collection agency, and like Quest was the big one, and LabCorp.
Mm-hmm.
In the Quest case, Quest didn't even necessarily know their data was at the AMCA in the breach because it was 2 BAs down. Mm-hmm. So they hired Optum 360, who then hired AMCA. So there goes that whole thing about you only have to worry about the ones right below you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they're going to be in your breaches.
And you want to make sure they stay out of your breeches. But I can tell you, I went to the OCR breach portal, but what do we call it, David?
It's called the wall of shame.
It's what everybody calls it, the wall of shame. And I pulled everything from 2019 and I looked at it of the top 15 in being in the number of patients involved, right? Because it's the covered entities who are reporting. Of the top 15, 7 of them were from this one breach.
Wow.
Boom. The bomb went off. I mean, now, no doubt about it, that, this is just spread far and wide.
Maybe we should change it from the wall of shame to the wall of it won't happen to me.
Oh, yeah, that'll work. But there's some cases where there are data breaches, and, I've read the stories, and it's truly someone made a really bad mistake. A really bad mistake. Like in Bangor, Maine. That's where this story was. Bangor, Maine, the communication director of the hospital accidentally sent a spreadsheet with 300 patients that were on Suboxone, an opioid treatment drug, 300 patient names saying that they were on this drug to the wrong address.
Oh.
Yeah, it was an accident. The bigger issue is the wrong address they sent it to was the Bangor Daily News. So, obviously the news agency did the right thing. They removed it. They made sure it was cleared from their system completely, notified the hospital notified the patients. But at the same time, they are horrified that this happened. And I feel bad for the communications director if they are still the communications director. It did not, they said it was literally a mistake. It's a human error. We did our investigation, human error. And we know that happens all the time. So those human errors happen at your business associates too.
Oh, yes.
So sometimes it won't happen to me. It's people make mistakes.
Yep.
So,
and then there's, we all know it's a self-reporting system.
Yeah. So we don't even know how many aren't there.
I know of a chiropractor here in the town I live in that had a breach recently. And I know from an employee that works there that it was not reported.
And there's times where I've had to tell people that, this is your business decision. Here's all the information. Here's what the law says. Here's what we know. And you are obligated to do this evaluation and make the business decision. I can't do anything about what their choices are. So anyway, that brings us to Google. And the really scary one of Google. This one bothers me a lot.
Yeah, this is fairly recent.
Yeah, this is with Ascension Health System. So it's like 22 hospitals.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we forgot to tell y'all.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of problems with this one because they have hired Google as a business associate. They did a business associate agreement and then just gave them all the data. The complete records. That's a whole new ball game now. Because now they just connect that data with the other data they have about you. And all of a sudden in your advertisements, you start seeing things that are directly related to your healthcare. I got a big problem with this one. I got a huge problem because they're not even attempting to. Really?
Yeah. Full access to the medical records.
Yeah, the whole thing's. Now, they're doing it for an honorable reason. The way they're doing it is not honorable. At least in my opinion. Now, Google has Project Nightingale. That's what they call it. Which is where they're developing artificial intelligence that evaluates the medical information in the records and looks for ways to better treat illnesses or conditions or make it faster or provide more information to physicians. I get it. It's great. And Google has massive amount of servers and they have the money to make, all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Project Nightingale is a tiny piece of a giant company called Alphabet.
Yeah.
Which has Gmail and all these other things. And their core business is selling ads in search engines.
Mm-hmm.
No. And that it was done sneaky. The sneaky part, that's what really bothers me.
Yeah, because if it's all above board, then why would you not just get in front of it?
Yeah, because the only way it came out, I think it was in July, Google had one of their earnings calls and they just mentioned it. And everybody's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You know, some people let it pass, didn't notice anything, but the Wall Street Journal looked into it. They did a big article about it. But neither company prior to that moment had made any announcement about this. So, big problem there. And here's the thing. I don't know about you, but if they're doing stuff with my data and they've kept it secret, I'm going to feel less comfortable with what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, another thing that they have going on is that there are some insiders at Ascension that are worried that PHI is not being handled properly.
Yeah. When you've got the insiders, and this came from, you know, all of the other organizations started doing their own investigation of this. And they report in the New York Times that some employees they've talked to, they have raised concerns that the Google employees are doing stuff they shouldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have sources close to the incident.
There you go. So it's I wouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, we know how bad some of these folks are at this. We just talked about how squirrely the business associate agreements are, and how they leave things wide open. But this one I can't find the middle ground. I can't even get to maybe on this one. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. You know, at least with the Chicago deal, they are attempting to do everything possible. And frankly, if I'm looking at it, if they're getting all of the full records, they're not going to try to re-identify Chicago State. Why would I want to do the work to try to re-identify this when, hey, I'm getting it all fully loaded here from 22 hospitals, millions.
Wow.
And I mean, come on. No, and the fact that the insiders at Ascension, those are the people that are taking protecting patients seriously. They're like, this is not good.
Yeah.
So I'm very concerned about this one. Let's just say, and we will be watching both of those cases because they're going to tell us a lot. We'll actually watch all of the cases that we've mentioned because, nerd. But again, this is a huge area. It is not going to change. It is going to get worse before it gets better, in my opinion. I don't know about you, David, but we'll talk about that in our predictions.
I'm sure we will.
All right, now you get to cover number 5. I'm going to just let you do it.
All right, number 5. So I think number 5 is one that I put down. It was crypto mining will become a bigger threat than ransomware in 2019. And we fell flat. This one just completely did not happen.
It just went.
Yeah, it was.
You're not even going to try to make it a winner.
I don't think I can even pull this one out. It just, no. Because, a few things. One is the crypto mining really depends on the price of Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin crashed and then started having all these other fluctuations, people are like, nah, you know what? I'm not fooling with it.
Yeah.
But there's some other sides of it too. Like, for example, this can be going on a lot, but we just don't know it because of how it works. We know when you have ransomware.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
But people don't always know when crypto mining is happening. And so because of that, it could sit there for a lot longer. But that aside, ransomware kind of got rebirthed in 2019.
It busted out.
And so, and we're seeing a rapid progression of ransomware to where each threat that gets released is worse than the previous. I mean, I read about one yesterday that says that the ransomware morphs every 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mutating itself every 20 minutes, so you can't keep up with it and find it. Wow.
Right. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So, ransomware it's always been bad, but in 2018, it seemed to kind of start leveling out. Like, we had some bad stuff, but it was like, okay, there's this new way to do things, and ransomware is going to start dying down a little bit. Oh no. It came back with a vengeance.
Well, and the big difference is it targeted businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this in like 3 different episodes throughout the year. We talked about Ryuk with the scary Japanese anime name, and how it was different because it was targeting businesses, and it made a boatload of money in January. And by the end of the year, I saw a statistic that there was like a 400% increase in ransomware targeting businesses.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I think people are starting to catch on that there's a, ransomware as a service that you get off the dark web, and people are taking advantage of that.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of things that are happening, and companies aren't prepared, or, well, at least now they're starting to get prepared. We had tried to do it before, and everybody's like, well, it's, until it happens to someone
Yeah. Well, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. They're not understanding a lot of the IT side of things, because ransomware attack is an IT thing. It's not an IT problem.
Yeah.
It is an everyone problem. And I think there's a disconnect there as well. And we could have a whole show on that, which is, you have to stop looking at this as being IT issues. This is everybody issue. And if you're only trying to address it through IT, then you're going to fail.
Well, the other problem is it became, this time last year, the FBI was doing all these webinars trying to tell the managed service providers, the MSPs, IT companies, that they were under attack.
Yep.
And we were talking about it and looking at it, but I don't know anybody else was.
No.
And the problem is, we talked about this, a specific one in the Halloween episode. We've talked about it in other episodes where DDS Safe was hit. But the bottom line is they were hitting the MSPs and then hitting a ton of companies all at one time.
Oh, yeah.
So now, not only have they started attacking businesses, but they're attacking, guess what?
The IT
supply
company.
chain.
Yeah.
The supply chain is exactly what we were just talking about. So they're going and just grabbing more and more people in one fell swoop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the largest breaches on record was a supply chain incident.
Yeah, and the Anthem one? Or a different? Oh,
I'm talking about the Target.
Oh, yeah, Target.
Home Depot too, I believe.
Yeah, those were, back in the early years of data breaches.
Mm-hmm.
So
17, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
16, 17 in there.
So this stuff has been happening a lot, and people aren't looking at how many people have access to their systems, to their internal networks, to their data. And then they, pass it off as, well, I don't really have anything anybody wants. Really?
Yeah. You just have the most valuable data other than like military secrets and state secrets. Nothing to
this is what gets me, is that we are in the information age, and the most valuable thing anybody has is information.
And you have a boatload of it.
Yeah. And all we're saying is you have to have a way to protect those information assets. That's what I do day in and day out in my job. I do nothing but protect information assets. And that's it.
It's no longer about keeping the computers up and running.
No.
That's like, oh, okay, well, just put another one in there. They're cheap enough now. But it is protecting is what it's all about. And for those who are not doing this, it will become there will be a rude awakening if you're not worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or wait, I'm sorry. If all you do is sit and worry about it and do nothing, not gonna that will not help.
Yeah, worrying didn't help much, but
No.
at least you are worried about it.
I know, right? But I think the one that was most troublesome to me now, and we saw so many ransomware attacks that we dealt with in multiple discussions, but in particular, they're the two that really bothered me the most. The one we talked about at Halloween where the IT company just disappeared.
Yeah.
They told, 20-something dental groups, we're not optimistic that we're going to be able to do this. Go find somebody else. And that was the only answer they gave all of these clients when they got hit.
Yeah.
So that one, that's quite bothersome. But even more so is, the one where for our 200th episode where we thought we were funny by saying we're shutting it down, which frankly, we were funny.
Yeah, that is. We got the most feedback of any episode.
I felt so bad when Alex sent me one. He's like, I've been driving all day and I just started listening to the first part of episode 200. I have to go to bed. I can't listen to the whole thing. Please tell me you're not shutting down. Bless his heart. I was like, you're okay. You're okay. Sleep tight.
Yeah, you should have clicked that donation button, Alex.
Anyhow, the We're Shutting Down episode was an ENT office that got hit with ransomware and they just closed
Mm-hmm.
and left their patients with nothing. I mean, literally, you need to find another doctor. I know I just did surgery last week, but you're going to need to find another doctor. And oh, by the way, I don't have any of your records. See you, bye. Hate to do it, but it's a business decision. And they were taking interviews and all this kind of stuff that first week. And then I think they learned, oh, wait, HIPAA?
Yeah.
Boy, that one's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be interesting to see how it comes out. So, and there's going to be a lot. I know of multiple OCR enforcement cases that are, down to the nitty gritty. There are a lot of cases they're trying to get closed that they can't get closed that are, because now we're finally getting into those years where it all started happening. We've gotten out of 2014 and 15. Now we're getting into 2016, 2017. And along those lines, there are a lot more breaches. So we're going to hear about how this failure to be prepared for this ransomware after we had the big scare starting in 2016, 2017, it dips off in 2018. So everybody quit worrying about it.
Mm-hmm. But they did have guidance come out,
Yeah.
about ransomware.
And we didn't stop talking about it.
Mm-mm.
David thought he couldn't talk about it anymore, but it wasn't me.
Well, I didn't think it was going away. I just thought crypto mining was going to end up
Be a
being
bigger threat.
being a bigger issue.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's slower money. It's much slower money.
Yeah. You have to really understand that. But
Well, we also started seeing an uptick in the ransomware cost because
because they go to the businesses.
Yeah, I mean, when this started, the listeners may not remember. You and I remember when ransomware first came on the scene. They were asking for like $300 at the most.
Yeah.
No, not anymore. We're talking tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Or a million.
Yeah.
So, and I can tell you for certain that many of these IT companies that were hit, and we only know of the one that just ghosted them, but there are plenty of them that were hit that paid.
Oh, yeah.
Because they had no other choice.
Well, they're also finding out too, some of these that when they pay, you might get your data back, but even if you do get your data back, oftentimes it's damaged to the point of not being able to be used anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which
I
we
wonder
covered
how
that
many,
in an episode of Will You Pay?
Yeah. So I wonder how many, pay and they're like, oh, I got my data back. And then find out weeks later that, oh, wait a minute, as we start using this data again, now we're starting to find out that it's damaged. It doesn't work. Half of it is missing.
Yeah, because they spend a lot of time writing really good encryption, but then when they write the decryption programs, they're not as committed.
No. Yeah. So we don't hear about that, but I do wonder how many times they get the data back, and you don't hear any more about it, but it's just the data ends up being unusable.
Yeah. Damaged, at least.
Yep. Anyway.
So there we have it.
All right. So we nailed, 4 out of 5. 3.5 out of 5 if you want to be Donna.
But, we were spot on in a lot of ways. So we know 2020, we got a lot of things to talk about. So watch for that episode coming up soon.
Yep.
And we'll look for a whole new year of trouble.
It'll be there. Yeah, we'll be there to cover it.
Oh,
All right, folks, that's our show for today. Remember to follow us and share us out on your social media sites. Or if you're in the Atlanta area, you can just follow Donna. That makes her really paranoid. You can rate us on our podcasting app. We need your help to spread the word. I always remember for Donna and myself that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.